Hi, welcome to this Patreon video. So this quite short video is just introducing some general ideas about landscape painting and how I approach landscape painting. It's not a complete guide, it's just some general ideas, just a few things to think about if you want to get into landscape painting. I'm going to be talking about this painting in specifically, but also the ideas are quite general and apply to any painting really, any landscape painting. Okay, well the first thing we can look at is maybe composition. So composition, I know it's not the thing that most people focus on at the beginning. Many people are more interested in what materials should I use, what paper should I use, things like that. But composition needs to be, if not at the top, certainly very close to the top of things to consider. Good composition can often result in good paintings, whereas good techniques and good materials don't necessarily deliver good paintings without a good composition. That's my opinion anyway. Okay, so if you look at the composition on this one, I divided the page into 4 sections, and I've sort of color coded these. You can see them on the right. So the top part of the page, sort of bluish section, that is the sky. Beneath that you have the purple section, that's the horizon line. Below that is the green section, and that's the background and the middle ground. And then the bottom section, sort of orange part, that is the foreground. So you have those 4 sections, and each section has a different purpose within the paintings, and also maybe different focus within the paintings. Now I should say, before going any further, this painting has an open composition, which means there's no definite focal point. I'm not trying to direct the viewer's eye to any one part of the painting. Open compositions, they're quite common in landscapes. They can give the feeling of a more expansive landscape. The idea that we're not just focusing in on one little bit of the landscape, we're looking at the whole thing. Now in this painting, the top part, the top section, the sky, I didn't really do much with the sky. It's just there. It's there kind of just for context. So with a landscape, I guess most of us, most of the time, would expect to see a little bit of sky at least in a landscape. So that's all it's there for. It's just a bit of context. It helps the viewer to understand that this is a landscape. Between the land and the sky, I put in a horizon line. Now for me, the horizon line is a very important part of the painting in my style of painting. The horizon line is really something that catches the viewer's eye. So I use quite dark colors. I use a dark Prussian blue to put in this horizon line, to put in the hedgerow. I should say at this point as well, I don't use colors in a naturalistic way. Hedgerows are not blue. They're certainly not like a dark Prussian blue. The value of the hedgerow could be darker than the value of the fields, but they're usually not blue. So I don't use colors in a naturalistic way, in a realistic way if you like. I use them in a more artistic way. So if you look at the horizon line, that dark Prussian blue, and directly below that is the background, and I put that in a bright yellow, a cadmium yellow, because I want that contrast between the dark blue and the bright yellow, and that's what sort of catches people's eye. So that's just a sort of style, a technique that I use in a lot of landscape paintings. You don't have to do it that way, it's just something to think about. So then the background, as I say, this bright cadmium yellow, that goes into the middle ground. The middle ground is just there to really connect the horizon line and the foreground. The foreground then is quite a large section of the painting, and that's where I put in lots of texture, lots of sort of detail or implied detail, dabbing on paint, scratching the paper, doing things like that to try and suggest that there is maybe vegetation and things growing up in the foreground. There's something happening in the foreground. And the reason I do that is it then separates the foreground from the middle ground and the background. And that separation helps to create a feeling of depth. With landscapes, you don't have to create this feeling of depth, but if you want a landscape that is somewhat realistic, then you need to try and suggest this feeling of depth. Because of course landscapes are three-dimensional, not flat two-dimensional things. Okay, well that's basically the main points I wanted to talk about. As I said, these are general points, just using this one painting as an example. And of course these general points apply not just to watercolor, it could be any medium really that you're using. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching, and of course thank you for supporting me here on Patreon.